Good evening and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. Now, the first locomotive we're going to see coming out of the station is of class 14XX. Now you see her coming out now, complete with an auto coach. And this video is going to be a follow-on of my previous video, which talked about the Cheddar Valley line, which ran from Yatton. Now, if you're coming out from Bristol and you'd get to Yatton station, if you look on the left, that's where the Cheddar Valley line would have gone, and then on the right hand side is where you would have caught a train into the holiday resort of Clevedon. So if we just hold on a second, we're just going to change the points. And away we go. Now, the way that I'm running this train now is perfectly in order, because the driver is going to be sat in the cab just here, okay? And in fact, these were designed for places like the Clevedon branch, where they were going into a station terminus, and then instead of having to run the locomotive round, the driver simply went to the end of the carriage, and there was a cab there where he drove the locomotive from there. And it was done by a series of levers and rods and signals to the fireman, who stayed in the locomotive while it went along. So this, in fact, what would have happened. It would have started, it's a Yatton station going forward, and then Clevedon going backwards maybe. And the Clevedon line was a single line, and it closed in 1966, and that has a bearing on what we're actually going to be seeing tonight. Now, these 14XXs were used on the Clevedon branch until 1960. Okay, and what you can see going around tonight is a dapple 14XX in British Rail livery, late British Rail, green, and the actual coach is a dapple auto coach, and that's in BR Maroon. So it's all the sort of period we're talking about. And we're talking about tonight about the changeover between steam to diesel. Now, it's a time of great changes on British railways, because you not only had the coming of the diesels, but the government in the 1960s also commissioned the Beeching Report. And for those of you familiar with the Beeching Report, you don't need me to talk any more about it, but for those of you unfamiliar, the Beeching Report was commissioned, and the person in charge was Dr. Beeching, Richard Beeching, and he was given the job of trying to stem the losses on British railways. And in fact, his answer was to close most of the system down. In fact, he regretted he couldn't close more of our railways down. So, but anyway, that's another subject. I think he's been vilified in many ways, Dr. Beeching, or but he was given a job to do. And really, I mean, who do you blame? The person who hires the assassin, or the assassin? I mean, that's what it's all about for me. And he did come up with some good ideas in the Beeching Report. I mean, a lot of it was all to do with the modernisation of British Rail, and it was seen really that the future for British Rail will be high-speed trains between major cities, and that there would be not much of a future for the branch lines. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to run our steam engine in just a moment, but we'll see her go around a little bit longer. It's an 042 tank engine, and they were also used for freight. I think we used on freight in Devon as well, on certain railway lines. And they were seen all over the western region of British Rail, and its predecessor, the Great Western. And this is the livery it would have been seen in the second part of British Rail steam era. The first part, it would have had the unicycling lion, and then this has now got the later crest. And in fact, the 14XXs with the unicycling lion, the early crest, I think would have been in black. but these were later painted in green. You imagine these just going up and down the Clevedon branch, picking up passengers between the main line station and Clevedon itself. In fact, Clevedon's a quite nice little place. You know, it's not a massive place, but it's got a nice little pier there. I think it's just one pier of the year, and I think the pier was described by Sir John Betjeman as the most elegant pier. So that's good enough for me. And when you get there, there is an awful lot on the pier itself, to be truthful, but it's still a very nice pier. Now, I've heard of plans afoot, so I don't know whether it's true or not, that they might be talking about opening up part of the line which runs from the Atton to Clevedon, and whether or not that actually is true or not, I do not know. It would mean that it would have to go round a few new housing estates that have been built over the top of the line, and various other things. But really, I think what a lot of people didn't foresee, that with the coming of the car, a lot of places would actually end up being flooded with cars. And today, of course, there's a lot of pressure on councils and local government to go for a more greener agenda. So we could see a resurgence in our railways, you know, even greater than what's been happening recently. Anyway, we're going to be bringing our 14XX in, and these were obviously of the times when the modernisation plan was afoot. And we're going to show you what the replacement was. Sorry, I made a bit of a noise when I got up. That's my knees giving way again. That's what I can see. Now, we'll turn the controller to forward. And we'll see if we can bring him up into the station, nice and steadily. There we are, over the points perfectly. How about that then? Beautiful, beautiful running. This is being mainly achieved by the fact that I've got the new Gauge Master controller here. I mean, it's a nice new controller, and the control on it's really good. So it means I can actually drive my trains a lot more precisely, certainly into my little sidings. Obviously there's the slightest mishap and I'm off the edge there onto the floor, so I need to have good control. Now the next vehicle we're going to see coming out is going to be the bubble car you can see in the distance there. It just needs one quick change of points. Go into reverse, and we'll just see if we can hear the right noises coming from it. There we go, it's coming. And this is a class 121 bubble car, and these were used on the Clevedon branch to replace our beloved 14XXs. And again, we can show it going round in this direction because it would have been going up and down the line in either direction. I think they were running on a one train in steam principle. I don't think there was any passing loops on the Clevedon branch, but if anybody knows any differently, please correct me. Now these were brought in 1960, and they were used right up until the closure of the line in 1966. Now, they weren't really given enough of a chance, really. I mean, if we're going to be modernising the railways and doing away with steam and bringing in diesel, I think really that the diesel engines, the diesel should have been given more of a chance to show their worth. In fact, the Beeching report was commissioned right in the middle of the transition from steam to diesel, and in fact, maybe there wasn't a chance for diesel to show their true potential. In fact, these were very popular on a lot of the railway lines. I think they had a top speed of about 70 miles per hour. I don't think they would have been doing 70 on the Clevedon branch. And they gave good service. I think they were used right up until 2014, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I think I've seen instances of them being used in Buckinghamshire. That's where they ended up being used. Certainly after 1966, another branch where they were used was on the Bridports branch, which ran between Maiden Newton and Bridports, which is near West Bay in Dorset. But again, they were moved on after the late 1970s, and I think that's where they all ended up. A lot of them ended up in Buckinghamshire. I think they are in preservation. They were very popular diesel multiple units. Now this particular model is by Lima, and you've already heard the motor going on it. This is something which I bought in the early 2000s, if I remember rightly. Now, Lima stopped production in about 2004, sadly. They were an Italian company, and now they're owned by Hornby. In fact, they do come under the Hornby umbrella, and I think Lima trains are being actually released at the moment under that name. So I think they're for the Italian market. And I'll give you proof of that. I mean, these are some of the brands which have fallen under the influence of Hornby now. And you can see Lima there, River Osage, Jouef, and Electrotron or something. Excuse me if I said that wrong. But anyway, our subject for our thing tonight with this particular railcar is Lima. Now, I think a lot of the Lima models were actually carried on in the Hornby Railroad range. And that's certainly something which would have happened. I'll explain more about that in a moment when we run our next train. And these must have been popular with their drivers. So, I mean, you would have great sort of pride in your steam engines, but I should imagine on the transition to diesel, some people would have been looking forward to the transition to diesel. It would have been a dirty job on a steam engine. We love our steam engines, I know that, and a lot of railwaymen love their steam engines too. I mean, they cherish them and everything. But with the coming of diesel, it was something which was going to be happening. D-Day for the Western region of British Rail was the end of 1965, but they had to continue with steam on the Somerset and Dorset Railway, which the Western region had got control of until March 1966. But really, by the end of March 1966, there was finally no steam at all on the Western region of British Rail, and diesels like this had come in. But then the very branch lines they were built to run on were getting closed. And I can't see the logic in that, to be honest with you. But there we go, that's my opinion. Now we're going to run our locomotive in just a moment. So our lovely diesel Railcar. And as you see, it's a lovely little runner. It goes around quite nice. And now this was one which I kept in the attic for years. And I've only got down because of the lockdown. And you can see it runs perfectly fine. We'll bring it around just by these. There we are. Now we've got the three vehicles all together there. So now you've got our diesel there, locomotives, which is Warship, the H15 Druid, and a source of confusion, which I'll go into in a moment, which is our Western Enterprise, okay, which is the in sand livery there. But we'll have a closer look at this one as well. You can see they've got the exhaust pipes on there and everything else. Look at that there, okay. I think they're nice models. Like I say, I bought this in the early 2000s. And we're going to bring her into the station now, so we can move on to our next train. So for the purpose of our video, we're using a little bit of imagination here. And we're kind of imagining we're at Yatton Station. Now, Yatton Station was not an island platform like this. And in fact, if we got the train, say, running from Bristol, we would have had the Cheddar Valley on this side, and the Clevedon branch on this side. Okay. And we're going to run our Druid out. There's another Lima model. And we'll see if we can get the points all changed successfully. And away we go. Now, any hesitancy is not because of the controller, my brand new controller. It's the locomotives have not been used for some time, and but we'll see how we go with it. Oh, fucking... Okay, so we'll just run out. Okay, we'll just bring her up to the station. And we're just going to bring her down towards us now, so we're just going to check the points are set. Change it forward. And away we go. Now these trains would have been speeding through Yatton Station in the 1960s. Now certainly by 1962 the Kings had gone, and by 1965 I think the castles had all gone. And our railways were then dominated by the diesels. And these were seen all over the western region of British Rail. Now, being diesel hydraulics, they were different to everybody else who decided to went with diesel electric, and in fact that was in a way their undoing, because they were deemed in by the early 1970s as being non-standard, and they were withdrawn. I mean, these went in the early 1970s, so they had a fairly short run on our railways. And then the Westerns had gone by 1977, and but by then, of course, the Intercity 125s were coming online. There was the planned but aborted advanced passenger train that was in stage of development. In fact, that should have been the train of the 1980s, but it didn't actually come to fruition, unfortunately. And here we see our Warship. These were very often used on double-headed trains, and so they were quite a powerful combination when they were double-headed. And you see a lot of the archive footage, which was recorded in the 1960s, which when they get to the mainline station like Yatton or Highbridge, you do see the diesels thundering through. So you see, sometimes it could be a Warship, sometimes it could be a Western, speeding on down to the holiday resorts of, say, Torquay, Paignton, or maybe going all the way down to Plymouth or to Cornwall. Now, one of the things that features of these locomotives, certainly with the Westerns, and certainly would have been with the Warships, is that they were asked to pull old stock, and so the old stock was steam heated. So what they had to do was put a boiler in the locomotive. I think it was oil fired boilers, and they tended to be a little bit temperamental. Some people could work them, some people couldn't, and if they went out, it involved going into a noisy engine compartment to try and get them going again. Now, if you want a book recommendation, is this one. L.C. Jack's Diesels, A Driver's Reminiscences. It includes his experiences of driving the diesel hydraulics, and in fact all of the diesels. His railway career ran, I think, from the late 1950s to the early 1980s, up until 1982. So he would have seen all of the steam, would have started it with steam, and then gradually moved over onto diesels. It's a book well worth reading. Now, this particular warship, I believe, has been carried on in the Hornby Railroad range. There's probably a different motor, a different design to it mechanically, but really the body shell is virtually the same as the Hornby one. It differs to the mainline one. The mainline was carried on by Batman, but that's a different story. But mainline locomotives like this, the models, actually lit up at one end, but these Lima ones don't have that feature. Now we're going to run this one in just a moment. And perhaps we can imagine this one arriving maybe at one of the holiday resorts like Paynton, full of happy holiday makers. So here we go. And you can see I've got this new Gauge Master controller, and they're doing a very, very good job of controlling the locomotive. See that coming in beautifully now. Now I was able to pan and follow the locomotive and control the tripod at the same time as well, control the camera, and in fact that does take a certain amount of coordination. Those of you like me are new to this filming are probably not used to having to sort of turn the controlling knob and also swiveling the tripod at the same time, but there we are. We made a successful run into the station without going off the edge onto the floor, and now we're going to run our next locomotive. In fact, it's the last one we'll be seeing tonight, and it's our Western Enterprise. Just bring them into reverse. Now we'll bring her to the station. Now this is in Desert Sand livery, Western Enterprise. Now this model, if you buy one, is a Lima. Well, I bought mine second hand off eBay because obviously you can't get them new from Lima anymore. I don't know if Hornby did one in Desert Sand livery. They made a small mistake on it, which I'll go into in just a moment. Now we're in reverse, check we're in reverse, and we just go back. And you can watch her going out to the station now. Alright, now it looks really handsome, that livery. The experimental Desert Sand livery used in the early 1960s. Of course, the colour that was eventually chosen was maroon, green, I think was used, and then eventually BR blue, the BR blue era. Some people like the BR blue era. I certainly began travelling on the railway, so I think when there was still a lot of blue stuff around, and you know, it's all down to personal preference on colours, but I do like this experimental livery. Now we're just going to make sure we're forward. Points are correct, yes. So wait for the signal to go, and away we go. Western Enterprise. I think we derailed on there. I think we've got a problem with that point up there. So we just bear with just a moment. We'll just see what's happened. Right, That's a repair job for me for next time possibly. It looks like the point was stuck. We'll see how we go through here. If that point's not right, we're going to have a spectacular derailment as it comes round again. So sorry about that. Anyway, we'll move on to this last locomotive now. Our Western Enterprise, model by Lima. A cause of confusion, alright. Oh, there we are, the points are working perfect now. Now, for some reason, the train was stopping dead. It just refused to go through the point. And now it's running through perfectly. I think the point may have been stuck. Could have been some sort of other thing, something stuck in the point, I don't know. I'll need to look at that later. But now we're running perfectly well through there. Now, the number of this particular one. Now, our little book here, L.C. Jacks, he talks about seeing this particular locomotive, and it's D1000, but the number Lima put on it was D1023. I think there was a little bit of confusion because they saw a preserved locomotive possibly in this livery. I'd assume this was it, but apparently there was a confusion of the number, and they called this 1023. In fact, 1023 is Western Fusilier. Okay, but what I've done is I've not actually changed this model because I think it's a bit of a talking point, and it's leaving the model as it was built by Lima. I mean, you see them on eBay sometimes, you see them advertised as renumbered, which would be quite correct, and in fact I could see that really playing on someone's mind if they bought this particular model and then found out that it was given the wrong number. It should be D1000 and they put 1023 on it by mistake. But I think it's a very handsome model, and that's the thing, and it's a shame that they did that because you know, for some people it would have spoiled the buying experience when they found out that Lima's error with it. But for me, I'm glad I bought this locomotive. In fact, I always fancied one in this particular livery, and now I got it. So anyway, if there's any confusion, if somebody tells me they've got a 1023 Western Enterprise, you say, well, it's not their fault, they've got it wrong. It's Lima. In fact, they made a mistake when they actually did the numbering of this one. Okay, and again, you can imagine this one's speeding. I mean, these are one of the very most powerful of the diesel hydraulics. If you think about the diesel hydraulic locomotives that were out, there was the Warship, which was the one you just saw a moment ago, the marine one, the Class 42 and Class 43, depending on where it went and where they were built. And then you had the Hymex, which were built by Bayer Peacock, and they were sort of a middle size. There were baby warships, and there were also these, the final development with these Western classes. And if you want again the reference book, there we are. See if we can go zoom out a little bit. We'll have a proper look at this now. Class 52s, A Tribute to the Westerns by David Burt. Okay, that book is really worth it. If you're into your modelling and everything else, and you want to find out more about the Western class locomotive, that's where you go. I mean, I'm not a font of knowledge of everything. I don't know everything. My head's too small to take all the knowledge in, to be honest. But that's where, you know, I've got the various books, and so I can find out the facts because I'm fortunate enough to own this particular book on these. Okay, so you can see this one speeding away. You imagine this now, speeding down the railway line, maybe speeding through Yatton Station, going past the Clevedon branch, because that hasn't yet closed. We're talking about maybe the mid-1960s, okay? And here it is. We're looking very handsome in its desert sand livery. Okay, so now's the time when I'm going to bid you farewell. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your interest. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe, ring that bell. And thank you very much for watching. And good night. Thank you.